In the old days of railways, there were many important roles that needed doing in order to keep things working smoothly, from shunting to signalling to scheduling. These duties were performed by many different people and pieces of specialised equipment, including, but not limited to, toads. As railways began to take on more and more traffic in the mid-1800s, concerns were raised over the safe running of both goods and passenger services. Since trains had no form of automatic or continuous braking, regulations were put in place requiring all goods trains to have a guard van be positioned at the rear. These vans were specially designed to assist in braking heavy trains and prevent wagons from running away should a coupling snap. Initially, many of these vans were made out of modified goods wagons, but as time went on, railways began to design and build them from scratch specifically for braking, with later guards vans also serving as mobile offices where guards could organise timesheets and handle any relevant paperwork to do with the goods on board. Each railway had their own designs, with most generally following the pattern of a box van with a small veranda at each end. The Great Western Railway, however, differed in their design, instead having a single, larger veranda at one end where the braking equipment was located. This at first was a simple open-air platform, but the design was soon changed to have a roof covering the exposed part to give the guards some protection. Though this arrangement became common across the Great Western Railway, it wouldn't be until 1894 that a proper, standardised brake van design was developed following a similar layout to its predecessors, with a large open veranda at one end. To assist with braking, the vans had large blocks of concrete or scrap metal set between their frames to increase their weight, as well as being fitted with sanding gear to help the wheels grip the rails should they be wet or oily. Windows were fitted in both the front and rear ends of the van so the guard could keep an eye on the train from within the van itself, with a full-size door allowing access from the inside of the van to the veranda. On the opposite side of the van, a hatch was installed that allowed guards to access the lamp bracket for when the van was running veranda first. A seat was fitted to give the guards somewhere to sit while operating the brakes outside, and the inside of the van was made comfortable too, featuring a desk, cupboards, seating, a stove and toolboxes filled with important equipment such as tail and side lamps, spare couplings, shunter's pole, oil, brake sticks, wheel sprags and anything else that might be needed to keep a train moving in a pinch. Later additions included lighting in the form of both oil lanterns and electric lights, and a first aid kit that the guards were trained to use. As well as guards, many vans included features designed to make life easier for other railway workers, such as footboards and handrails mounted lower down on the outsides of the vans for yard workers and guards to hold onto while shunting. The verandas of vans used on track maintenance trains were closed off to make the van interiors much more spacious, and were fitted with more seats, mess accommodation, and extra tool storage for track workers. Other variations included the vans that were enclosed so that they could work in the Severn Tunnel, and the ones fitted with side doors allowing them to be partially used as goods vans. But the thing that made the Great Western's brake vans stand out from the others wasn't their appearance or versatility, but their names. In 1852, the Great Western Railway began using telegraph communication much more as a safety measure for regulating trains and allowing stations to communicate to each other. In order to make communication more efficient, all the different wagon types were given different codes, such as mink for covered goods vans, beaver for flat trucks, and cricket for composite carriages, just to name a few. As you can probably tell, many of the initial code words were derived from animals to help differentiate them from destination names and other orders that came with the message. To help identify these wagons, their code names were stenciled onto them, which brings us to the brake vans. Out of all of the animals, these were given the code name of Toad. Whether this code was assigned at random like many of the other animal code names were, or was someone's attempt at making a joke about how these vans would be towed along behind a train, we'll never truly know. But regardless of the reason, the code of Toad was assigned to the brake vans. Over time, the name Toad became more and more synonymous with the brake vans, until eventually that became their go-to name for railway workers and enthusiasts alike, no matter the size, weight or layout. Something that likely helped cement this name was the Great Western's practice of allocating toads to a specific line, allowing guards to build up experience on that route while also making them a familiar sight for train spotters. This, combined with their unusual shape, name and general enthusiasm many had for the Great Western, is likely what made them such a fond and well-known aspect of the railway. Enthusiasm and a funny name, however, only goes so far, as the Toads had their own fair share of shortcomings, primarily their veranda. The braking equipment in many other contemporary vans was positioned inside the guards compartment, allowing them to control the brakes while remaining sheltered. On the Toads, however, the handle was mounted outside on the veranda, and while this did give guards an excellent view of the train regardless of the direction the van was facing, it still meant they were still mostly exposed to the elements, especially when travelling veranda forwards. The way they were facing was another issue. The preferred arrangement was for the veranda to be positioned at the very back, as it not only provided the guard with easier access to the lamp brackets, but also helped reduce draft and stop smoke, soot and sparks from the engine getting in. Because of this, it was common for Toads to be turned around before being attached to longer distance goods trains, something that was a waste of time compared to other double-ended brake van designs that didn't need to be turned around. And despite being spacious compared to most other contemporary brake vans, the Toads were considerably less safe. The Toads only had one door to get in and out of the guard's compartment, and should an accident occur that would block the door, the guard would be trapped inside. The hatch at the other end was about big enough for a person to fit through, but having to climb up and squeeze out of a raised hatch in an emergency situation wasn't ideal, especially when other vans had a door at the front and back and plenty of room to jump clear. Nonetheless, the Toads remained as the Great Western's standard brake van design all the way until nationalisation, when they were removed from certain workings over safety concerns. Despite the Great Western's telegraph codes being phased out in 1943 in favour of a standardised system for all railways, the name Toad stuck and has since become the official term for these Western brake vans. Their charm could only keep them around for so long, however, as by the 1960s, trains fitted with continuous brakes became more and more common, and newer diesels usually had a second cab that the guard could ride in, making brake vans pretty much obsolete. This, however, wasn't the end of the line for the Toads, as their size and safety made them ideal for use on industrial railways as small carriages for transporting workers. They also allowed for developing heritage railways to offer ride-on experiences for passengers and tourists. Because of this, they became quite a popular item among preservationists, and as a result, roughly 21 Toads have been preserved. Though maybe not the most practical of all of Britain's brake vans, the Great Western's Toads were still a staple and remained a favourite among enthusiasts. They might not have everyone hopping with excitement, but in the small pond of preserved British rolling stock, they certainly stand out among the rest. Just don't expect them to croak anytime soon. Subscribe for more.